Welcome, nice fluent English students. This is Unit 2 of our English workbook for second year PUC English. The first part that we're going to discuss today is reading for comprehension. Reading is an interesting activity that begins at a very young age. This section is reading with comprehension, and we're taking us for comprehension to with comprehension. And so, what does that mean? We're have an interesting activity of reading, and you can see from this picture we're in this outside world. But as we read, we go into the book, and we have a new world, a completely new world, and we get totally involved. Reading is an interesting activity that begins at a very young age. Some people start reading when they're 3 years old. But we read for different purposes at different times. In first year PUC, the skills of skimming and scanning were introduced. We looked at these stories and we skimmed to see what we were going to learn. And we scanned through them. And we learned about words, we learned vocabulary, we learned about building sentences. And now we have all of these tools to really start to begin to read for understanding and then eventually with understanding. This year, the focus is on developing students' ability to comprehend logically while drawing inferences. This is a very packed sentence, and we're going to unpack this sentence right now. What does that mean, to comprehend logically? We're going to read all of these words, but we have to have some kind of comprehension. So we have to know the meaning of the words, the parts of the sentence, the words, and we have to know what the sentences mean and be able to put them together. So that was written by a scholar, and he said this is one way that you can logically learn a language. Here's something you could or you should do. Whenever you come across a new English word, and this is what will happen as you start reading these longer essays, you should get the correct pronunciation of the word from the dictionary and then understand the meaning and emotion of the word. So whenever you come across any word that you don't understand, you should pull out your best friend, your dictionary, and look at it and see what it means and see how it's pronounced. And then further, this scholar, who's a very fluent English speaker, says, the next thing you could do is imagine yourself going through that word, going through that emotion, and use the word in a sentence at this point. This is the very best way to become fluent in English. You know what every word means in the sentence, in the paragraph. So please, use your dictionary for every word, and don't go ahead until you know what that word means. Once you get the hang of it, of learning every word, you'll come up with new ideas for yourself. So that's number one, is logically, comprehend logically. And then, once you comprehend logically, you start to draw inferences. All right, and we do this automatically. We're in life, and we get inferences. What are inferences? Just to bring you up to speed, let me tell you. Making inferences in a comprehensive strategy is used by proficient readers to read between the lines. In other words, we'll have some lines here, but between the lines, there'll be a meaning that is being tried to be conveyed, And a good reader, who reads with comprehension, will read between the lines. What do I mean by that? It means making connections and drawing conclusions about the text meaning and the prose. You are already making inferences all the time. I'll give you some examples. When you go to a friend's house and they point at the sofa and they say, hey, don't sit there, Cindy, my sister, came over with her baby. What would you logically conclude? You'd think, well, maybe the baby made a mess here. I'm not going to sit there. You'll infer that there's something wrong with sitting in that spot. Let's go for another thing here. First, you know there is a reason why your friend is pointing there. Next, the reason to not sit there is related to the fact that Cindy had brought her baby. You don't know exactly what happened. She could have thrown up. She could have spit up. She could have gone to the bathroom there. We don't know what happened. You don't know exactly what happened, but you can make the inference that something happened, and you don't need to ask more questions. You can get on with your visit with your friend. But you know you don't want to sit in that spot. Now, let's go through a couple more inferences. Imagine you witness the following situations. What can you infer about each one? You see a woman pushing a baby stroller down the street. All right? 2, you are at a corner and you see 2 parked cars at an intersection, and the driver in the second car starts honking his horn. 3, you're walking down the street and a dog comes up running out of an open door with its tail stuck between its legs. So, in the first example, you probably come up with something simple. The lady's pushing her cart. She's probably pushing a baby. That's what you infer when you see her pushing the baby cart. For the second, you might infer that the first car was moving backwards maybe, okay? Or was waiting too long at the corner and holding up the second car. So the car was beeping his horn. Come on, get out of the way. For the third, you can reasonably guess that the dog had gone and done something wrong and was afraid to get punished. You do not know for 100% what happened, but if these inferences are exactly true, if you checked 100 strollers, maybe 99 of them would have a baby. One stroller might have some groceries or something, okay? But maybe you would find something else. So to make inferences from reading, you take 2 or more details from the reading and you draw a conclusion in your own mind. Remember, making an inference is not a wild guess, all right? You need to make a judgment that can be supported. Just as you can reasonably infer there was a baby in the stroller, but not reasonably infer that there are groceries, even though they both would be technically a guess. So you'll see from some examples here, which is nice about our education, we go right into these examples. Next sentence is literary, descriptive, and narrative text types have been selected. So they're going to throw us right into different text right away. And what's the difference between these text types? Okay, literary is most literature is done in a fictional way, okay? They're talking about fictional characters, but they're trying to get an emotion across, that you understand something, you learn something from the literary work, okay? The descriptive work is telling you some information that they want you to know, okay? And then the narrative text type is usually a discussion or a discussion between several people, and they're given a narrative of what they have talked about. So let's go ahead and see what she's reading here. She's reading about hospitals, and the instructions are, okay, read the passages given below and answer the questions set upon them. So we have to read with some attention here, okay? The first passage is hospitals, and it's a measure of descriptive text. They're going to tell you how hospitals started and what hospitals are all about. They're classifying in an objective and non-judgmental way what hospitals are. So let's start reading. Hospitals then and now, and you can see we have a picture of an old hospital bed here. When the hospitals, the first modern hospitals started, they had these old metal beds, but at least they were adjustable and you can be a little bit comfortable in them. So let's go ahead. All of us have seen the inside of a hospital sometime or the other. Hospitals have a special smell of their own, and they seem very busy all the time. But how did the idea of setting up a special place or hospital ever come about? Let's see. We have a picture of a Greek temple. There are healing gods and goddesses on both sides of Buddha there. The ancient Greeks used the temples of their gods of healing as resting places for the sick. They'd have a sick person, they didn't know what to do with them, they would bring them to the temple and lay them there and hope that the gods would heal them. So did the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and the ancient Indians. They all brought their sick people to the temples. The Romans, okay, and they had a big empire, especially began to realize the need for hospitals. They were always at war, and the soldiers needed care and treatment. They had to get these soldiers back healthy again so they can go back into the war. The idea of temples caught on, and slowly then passed into the church. By the 4th century, important to remember 4th, church hospitals had begun. We have a picture of a church here, a church hospital. You can see the crosses in all the windows. And they would build these big hospitals. The churches would usually have a hospital on the side of their church to take care of these people. Centuries passed. From the 4th century all the way to the 17th century, there were church hospitals. That's where most people had hospitals. By the 17th century, public hospitals were founded in Britain by rich citizens who wished to serve the public. Finally, economics were better, people were getting richer, and they wanted to take care of people. And so in Britain, they wanted to do some nice things. So what did they do? The hospitals, as we see today, began to evolve only around the 19th century, okay? From the 17th to the 19th, just some rich people were starting to build some hospitals. But the hospitals we know now, okay, began to evolve around the 19th century. People began to live in better conditions. They felt the need for more cleanliness and better expert care. In the past, nuns and other members of the church had done the nursing. It was Florence Nightingale who began to feel the need for trained nurses to care for the sick. She began the St. Thomas Hospital in England. This was the first training college for nurses ever. Hospitals soon began to have public wards and private rooms. Today, a hospital is a vast organized organization, complex organization. You can see this big hospital here. There are doctors, physicians and surgeons and nurses. There are other staff like receptionists, record staff, hospital managers, etc. They even have a pharmacy, okay? Big hospitals could also have porters, orderlies, electricians, carpenters, plumbers, security. Wow, doesn't that sound like a small town in itself? It's like a whole village inside of this hospital. So they've given us a descriptive passage, informative passage, and now they want to know, what is this descriptive passage? What have we learned? Have we had any understanding about the words that they have just told us? So they're going to give us a test. So let's look at the first question. What did the ancient Greeks use as a resting place for the sick? We saw the picture. They used a temple. They used a temple with healing gods in there. Second question, what did the Romans realize? Why did the Romans realize a need for hospitals? They were always at war, okay? They need to heal their soldiers, okay? Because they're at war, they had soldiers that were injured, and they had to heal these soldiers. When did the church hospitals begin? Remember what I told you? 4th century. 4th century is when they started, okay? And number 4, rich citizens in Britain founded hospitals. Why? Well, they wanted to serve the public. We have the answer right here. Serve the public. So let's go ahead to the second set of questions. Number 5. As you remember, they had a training college for nurses, okay? And what was the name of that? That was St. Thomas. Who, by the way, was martyred in India, right where we are, over by Chennai. St. Thomas was martyred. but he was a very good healer. And so they named this hospital after St. Thomas. Number 6, fill in the blanks with the appropriate words or phrases. Okay, we have temples of gods and healing. What goes here? Ancient. Okay, this is the ancient way that they used to heal people. Temples of gods for healing. This is the ancient way they took care of sick people. 4th century, what happened? The church got involved. And they had church hospitals. Let's go ahead to the 17th century. What happened? They decided, some rich people in Great Britain decided to do what kind of hospitals? Public hospitals. And then finally, in the 19th century, just a short while ago, they started to have modern day hospitals. Modern hospitals. So that's the answers to those questions. Let's go ahead. And we have 2 more questions based on this material that we've studied. Find the synonyms from the passage for the following words. As you know, synonyms are words that mean the same as the other word. So from paragraph 1, we have understand. So what's the synonym in paragraph number 1? Is realize. They understood something, they realized something. Okay, what's the synonym for established? They established a hospital. What does established mean? It also means, from the paragraph number 4, they founded. They founded a hospital to take care of sick people. Let's go to the number C, 7C, dispensary. In the old days, it used to be a dispensary. They would dispense bandages and medicines. What do they call it now? So they can charge more money? They call it a pharmacy. And you have doctors of pharmacy, where they can prescribe medicines and give you medicines and fill orders. Now let's go to number 8, antonyms. Remember, we have synonyms that mean the same thing. Antonyms mean the opposite, okay? So we go to paragraph number 5, we have a layman. A layman is an ordinary person. He hasn't had particular expertise in a certain subject. So the opposite of that, opposite of a layman, would be an expert. And then the opposite of personal, something that's very personal to you, would be something that's out in the public. So we've learned some nice things from this descriptive passage about hospitals. Let's go ahead in our lesson. So now we'll go ahead to the narrative text, which is number 2. It's a story called The Moth and the Star. It's a narration between a young moth and his parents. So how does it start? A young and impressionable moth set his heart upon a star. He's looking around. He sees the lights, but he sees a bright star up in the sky. And he set his heart on this star. He told his mother about this, and she counseled him to set his heart on a bridge lamp instead. And she narrated to him, stars aren't the things to hang around. She said, lamps are the things to hang around. You get somewhere that way, said the moth's father. You won't get anywhere chasing stars. But the moth would not heed the words of either parent. Every evening at dusk, when the stars came out, he would start flying towards it, the one star out of all the other stars. He would start flying towards it. And every morning at dawn, he would crawl back home, worn out with this vain endeavor. One day, his father said to him, "You haven't burnt a wing in months, boy, and it looks to me as you're never going to. All your brothers have been badly burned flying around the street lamps, and your sisters have been terribly burnt flying around the house lamps. Come on now, get out of here and get yourself scorched. A big strapping moth like you without a mark on him." Here you can see the big moth, and they want him to get burned by going around these lights. But this moth is smart. He's not going to go there. He wants to do something bigger. He wants to expand out to this star. The moth left his father's house, but he would not fly around street lamps and would not fly around house lamps. He went right to trying to reach the star, which was 4 1/3 light years, or 25 trillion miles away. That's a long ways away. You can see the star that he was flying towards, okay? But he's a moth. He can't fly more than 10 or 15 miles an hour, okay? To get 25 trillion miles is impossible in one night. So he comes back every morning. But this was his goal, above the mountaintop to get to that star. The moth thought it was just caught in the tops of an elm, because he's seeing the star in the trees there, or in the mountain, and he thinks it can't be that far away, okay? And but it was just caught in the top branches of an elm. But he never did reach the star. He went right on trying, night after night. And when he was very, very old, the moth began to think that he had really reached the star, and he went around saying so. This gave him a deep and lasting pleasure, and he lived to a great old age. His parents and brothers and sisters had all been burned to death when they were quite young. So you can see he's still trying to reach the star. He's gone back and forth so many times, he feels like he's part of the star. And in a certain way, he had reached the star. And because of this goal, he lived a long life. His brothers and sisters, his parents are long gone. So this is a narrative passage, and they're asking us if we have any understanding. Of course we do. We're sharp. We're fluent English students, okay? We've read the passage, we've heard the discussion, and we know what happened. So we're going to answer these questions. The young and impressionable moth set his heart upon a what? A tree, bridge, or a star. Of course, he wanted to get to the star. What advice did his mother give to the moth? He said, hang around lamps. Go and fly around lamps and get burnt, okay? What did the moth do every evening? He flew towards where? The star. Flew to the star, okay? And how did the moth return every morning? You can imagine trying to fly 25 trillion miles. He was tired every morning. He flew all night and he came back and he fell asleep right away. Okay, how far was the star from the Earth? 25 trillion, okay? $25 trillion miles away. And what did the moth do after leaving his father's house? He kept trying to reach the star. Number 7, what feeling gave the moth a deep and lasting pleasure? Well, he flew back and forth every night, his whole life, towards the star. Eventually, he felt he and the star were buddies, okay? And so what gave him a deep and lasting pleasure was that he thought he had reached the star. Then we go into some vocabulary. Number 8, the idiom, okay, this is a set of words. It has a different meaning than the actual words. To set one's heart means, there's 3 options here, to desire a thing without joy, to really desire a thing with joy, or to desire a thing unknowingly. Well, this moth knew what he wanted. He wanted the star. So number B is the right answer. He desired a thing with joy. He wanted to reach that star. And that's what the idiom means. My heart is on that star. I really want to, I desire that thing. So it's a nice idiom to use. I set my heart on passing this English course with at least A marks. Okay. Number 9, find the antonym to dawn in the passage. As you remember, antonym is the opposite. So dawn is in the morning, all right? So in the afternoon or the evening, it's called dusk. D-U-S-K. That's the antonym for dawn, is dusk. And then we have give the noun form of deep. So we want to go deep into this subject of English, okay? We want to go deep into our study. And so we have to go to a certain depth. The answer is D-E-P-T-H. Depth is the noun form of deep. Let's go ahead. So the third text that they give us in the book is called a literary passage. It's a passage where it is written in a style to create a particular emotional effect or emotional response. It wants to get you involved, all right? So it's called a literary passage. And the one they gave us in the book is Mankind is One Family. And they start off by showing us a picture of a very hungry young boy, okay? In some third world country, or maybe even in America. Many people now, they go to bed hungry. And so the passage here is trying to get our emotions evolved to the point where we take care of everybody. And nobody goes to bed hungry. So how does this start? Half the world does not have enough to eat. Wow, that's a lot of people. Each year, as a result, many millions die young. The bodies and minds of many more are permanently damaged by hunger. We say to you this suffering can and must be stopped. When all of us, in rich and poor countries, make up our minds to stop it, we can do it. We just need to get all involved. We don't want to see boys like this hungry. The earth is ruled by many people out of touch with the young world. They know that men starve and die in millions, but they think it is more important to make guns and bombs and send us to fight one another than to provide food and water, schools and hospitals, so we might feed and serve one another. You see here a big rich house. This fellow lives, he's got his own garden, all of his stuff around him. He's very isolated from young people. And that's what this paragraph is saying. They're out of touch. They're out of touch with the world. They're out of touch with the young people. If you live in a poor country, demand enough food for your countrymen. Do not turn your backs on the people who provide food. Instead, work with them for rural development. If you are educated in a special knowledge and skills, remember that science and technology that can send man into space need only to be released into poor countries to work for even greater miracles, feeding everybody. If you are a parent, resolve to end the sufferings of children. Know, too, how to plan the size of your family so that the progress of all is not endangered. They go further. They say, let us make it plain to the rulers that the division of the world into rich and poor must end. The many billions spent on armaments must be spent to develop the world. Let them know that if politics or financial systems prevent a just distribution of food and wealth, then these systems must be replaced or at least changed. Above all, we must show our willingness to work for world development. Mankind is one family, with each of us has a duty to help others. You can see another picture here of two children that need help, and we have to help all of these people. This is a literary passage to invoke an emotional response in you to help people. So, what are the understanding questions that they ask? Answer the following in a word or a sentence. Why do many people die young? Simple. They don't have enough food. Number 2, what kind of people rule the earth? Unfortunately, people out of touch with the young. They're out of touch with the young. 3, what do the rulers think is more important than food? They think that guns, and war is more important. Very backward thinking. 4, what are the basic things the rulers are supposed to provide the people? First of all, food. And then we know the rest. Water, schools, hospitals. Put that right in that answer. Number 5, a parent should know how to end the sufferings of children by what? What's smart here? Planning the size of the family, earning plenty of money, employing them in some occupations. Well, it's smart to keep your family down to a reasonable size so you can take care of them. So the correct answer is plan the size of your family. What should you make plain to the rulers? You remember from the passage, we should make plain that the division between poor and rich should end. There should be no more division. No more division. No more division. We should all be one happy family. Okay, number 7. According to the speaker, many billions are spent on armaments, and they must be spent to what? Make guns? Fight with each other? Develop the world. Sounds like a better alternative. So develop the world is the correct answer. Number 8, add a prefix to the word willing to make its antonym. Prefixes, you know, are letters before a word that change the word, all right? And if you want to make it an antonym, that means the opposite. So we have the word willing. If we put un in front, unwilling. Some people are willing to do things, but if you're unwilling, it means you're not going to do it. So that's the correct answer, unwilling. Number 9, the rulers wish to, there's 2 choices here, possess bombs and guns, or possession. Possession is not the right word. Possess is the right word. The last question is, how should mankind be? And here we have a picture of the whole universe. And you can see that everything is getting along nicely. The stars are in their own position. The water is in their own position. The mountain is there. Everybody is getting along. So how should mankind be? Mankind should be one family in which each has a duty to help the other. That's the answer. So now in our book, they've given us examples and they've shown us the 3 types of text, But they want to give us some more passages so that you can do some homework and do some practice yourself. And to get to know more, have more understanding as you read. The first passage they give you, the following passages can be used for further reading practice. Students are encouraged to frame questions on them. So on this first one, Catch the Rain Where It Falls, read it and then develop 5 questions based on what we're going to read. This is called a descriptive passage because it's telling about rainwater and about water. So let's read it quickly. Catch the rain where it falls. Catch the rain where it falls was the rationale behind the construction of several thousand tanks in Karnataka by our forefathers. They have been the lifeline of the people and were protected as their main source of water supply for drinking and irrigation. Apart from meeting water supply and recharging the underground water, these water bodies served as excellent habitats for plants, fishes, frogs, etc. Some of them supported thousands of birds in certain seasons of the year, including migratory ones from different lands. People would fly from South America, these birds would fly and come up into North America, and they would stop by these tanks. But, life goes on. Things have changed over the years. Bad planning and mismanagement has turned these water bodies into reservoirs of waste. Tanks have become used for dumping garbage, waste construction, materials, discharge of municipal sewage, and industrial effluents. They also were drained to convert lands into housing sites, commercial complexes, bus stands, and stadiums. You can see we have a tank here, and we want to keep it nice and clean. That's the object of having a tank. A recent study conducted by the Indian Institute of Science shows that Bangalore has lost about 40%. Wow, that's a lot. That's 2/5 of the water bodies over a period of 25 years. Of the remaining, 40% of the water bodies are polluted due to the inlet of sewage. The famous Dharmabundi tank of Bangalore had been drained to make the majestic bus stand, while the Sampangni tank was given way to the Kartavira Stadium. The same has been the case with several of the 20,000 or more tanks in other parts of the state. It is time we reverse this trend and make efforts to conserve this life-saving resource. So based on what I've just told you, I'd like you to develop 5 questions for our next class. Let's go ahead. They give us another passage. This is a descriptive passage. It talks about alternative fuel. At a time when the use of fossil fuels to power vehicles is making environmentalists angry, an alternative fuel, the biodiesel, has emerged as a useful solution. Additionally, it solves the disposal problem of what to do with all these greasy things. The fuel is nothing but used vegetable oil, which has been tested satisfactorily. It has made a vehicle called a veggie van, a motorhome, run more than 16,000 kilometers across the United States. Also, it has visited 20 major citizens, causing absolutely no harm to the environment. Vegetable oil from various restaurants in America was all that was used for the entire journey. The novel experiment was started by a college project by 2 students, Joshna and Kaya. It eventually ended in a massive public awareness program. So, especially in America, they started using the corn to make this ethanol, and they were using it to power their vehicles. And even in India, they use a little bit, but India is very much concerned with not starving the kids, so they use most of their food for food and not making fuel. So I've shown here a windmill. And in India, India is embracing this idea of wind power. A lot of these mountains have these wind turbines on them, and they develop a lot of energy. It's a nice practical way to use. The idea of using vegetable oil as a fuel for a diesel engine first occurred to them when they visited a traditional farm in the picturesque southern Germany, where vehicles fueled by vegetable oil were in use. While studying agriculture and living on these farms, they noticed that the farmers were always filling their tanks with a yellow liquid. This fuel comes from the canola plants, which grow on our farms and nearby areas. We add in it the diesel and it smells good, the farmer said. The process of converting vegetable oil into diesel fuel is cheap and easy to find. Any vegetable oil, such as used in cooking oil, methanol, or clear alcohol, can be used as fuel. The diesel engine, which is being used, however, can run on altered vegetable oil or biodiesel without any modification. You just pour it in and go. Not only does biodiesel require zero modifications to the engine, this fuel works either by itself or blended with petroleum diesel. Biodiesel has been recognized as an official alternative fuel in the United States. Its use by truck and bus fleets has soared more than 1,000 or 10 times. Now, this article was written a few years ago. It's sort of peaked up at that point. And now they're going more towards solar, okay? And you can see these solar panels. These solar panels power this whole plant that's here, all right? So solar panels are becoming cheaper and a better source of fuel. Let's go ahead. They've given us one more passage, and this is a literary text passage. It's called Remembering Gandhi's Simplicity by Sundar Karika. Gandhi's secretary, Parallel, in 1947, notes that Gandhi had said, "Earth provides enough for every man's need, but not enough for every man's greed." According to Gandhi, greed was the cause of poverty. He also saw that greed as the root of all evil among humans. Rejection of greed is possible in all of us. Gandhi suggests that if we examine our own accumulative instincts, we ourselves realize the fewness of the things that we require. He goes on, "The opposition between need and greed becomes the central problem of today's society and is very well exemplified by the comment in the movie Wall Street." And in this movie, the guy says, "Greed is good." But he wasn't a happy fellow. Modern consumer society builds itself on the necessity of greed, without sometimes explicitly calling it by this word. It is nevertheless the case that greed continues to play a major role in contemporary culture through the use of other terms like competition, merit, hey, profit, we need competition, we need profit, margins, and so on. These are just other words for greed. We have to go through that and realize, even if we put Gandhi's picture, okay, on the $2,000 note, we have to realize that Gandhi was not a greedy person. He lived very simply. Our obsession with variety and difference in our personal lives has led to a situation where we do not like to eat the same food items every day. The most damaging illustration of this attitude is seen in what they have done to the most innocent of all items, our idli, the idlis we start every day. Today, restaurants do not just sell idlis. These have become passé, which is the French word for boring, okay? Passé and boring. Instead, you have fried idlis, idli Manchurian, idli masala, so many different kinds of idlis, and so on. The menu card has become the modern face of India, where our daily desire for variety is reflected. It's sort of a slap on the wrist, okay? We should be happy with much simpler food. One way to understand the difference between need and greed is through the notion of simplicity. Gandhi embodies simplicity in many ways. His dress, very simple, okay? His commitment to a few principles such as truth and nonviolence. His controlled food habits, he usually only ate once a day. And his Spartan living quarters in his ashrams. He developed ashrams, which were not showy ashrams, simple. And we have a picture of him with all the qualities of Gandhi written around him. So what's the takeaway from this class? The takeaway is that we read for comprehension, using our dictionary, using pronunciation, using teachers and fellow students to help us to comprehend explicitly what the passage is trying to tell us. So we go for comprehension, and then we're reading with comprehension. We get to be smarter once we know these words and how they fit together, and we can read between the lines. So with practice, and more practice, and more practice, okay, we will learn to simplify our ideas about English. We'll follow Gandhi, okay, and we will put into practice our desire to know more and to read more by practicing. And the name of the game is to read beautiful passages, narratives, descriptive passages, okay, and literary passages. And as we started with the beginning of our course, we have a whole new book, and we go into a new world as we read these beautiful passages. Thank you for your kind attention to this class. We'll see you in our next class for reading poetry. Om Sai Ram.